Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome back to day 27. Happy Wednesday to everyone. We're so happy you are with us today. We have a very special guest. Good morning, Penny. I'll say hi to you and let you introduce Izzie.
Izzie Tauheed, it's so good to have you on. For those of you who don't know, Izzie is, what did you say, 14th year in teaching?
Yes, this is my 14th year.
First year in grade 5. I think of you as a first grade teacher. I think that's because that's the work I saw you present on. Is that where your heart was?
It is. I know. That's why I'm like, oh, I miss first grade. I taught first grade for 10 years in 2 different states, in 2 different boroughs. It's my heart work. I love them.
But you said before we came on, some of your former first graders are now your 5th graders.
Yes, so that's what makes this year special. Even though I'm in a new grade, it's my same students, and they've said to me, "You've been my teacher my whole life." Some of them, because I taught them in first, I looped with them in second, and now I have them in 5th. And I have their things all around my house. And so I'll be like, oh, look, I'm writing in this notebook that so-and-so gave me, and I have this little figure that so-and-so gave me, and they love it.
Can I tell you, my husband has a teacher that he had 3 years in elementary, and we still get Christmas cards and send Christmas cards every year. He will never forget her. He always talks about Sonia Vestal. And you are that special to so many kids.
They are that special to me. You gave me a great idea. I was like, I want to be that teacher. Some of my students, when they share their hopes and their dreams with me, yesterday, it's a moment that stayed with me, especially on a day that was full of highs and lows. One of my students said, I want to be the smartest man in the world. Like, that's my goal. He said, I made a goal this year. I feel like I'm almost there. And I told him, don't forget me. Keep in touch with me. I'm going to help you with that goal, even beyond 5th grade. And so we made a pact. I was like, Elon Musk will have nothing on his child. You watch out for my kid.
I love that. So you were a Heinemann Fellow.
Yes.
And so was David yesterday. So could you tell people just a little bit about what that was?
So the Fellows was a cohort of educators from around the country. And we were a mixed cohort from different age ranges. I was an elementary school teacher, but we had middle and high school teachers, math teachers, ELA teachers, librarians. Some of us taught for 14 years. Some of us were only teaching for 3 years. And so we brought together our different experiences and areas of expertise to learn together and write together. And it was probably one of the most memorable experiences of my life, and had a huge impact on my career and how I saw myself, because teaching could be very isolating and you're in your classroom by yourself. But to have these moments where you're coming together with other educators and learning and growing, it helped me realize that I could extend my reach beyond the classroom, which was something I never saw or thought of before that experience. So we still talk today. I still am in contact with David. I told you to let him share his bread with you.
Yes. So every Heinemann Fellow has a kind of a research project. What was yours?
My action research project was on empathy. So I was still teaching first grade, actually, when I started the Fellows. And I was looking at how we could use literacy to build empathy in these young learners. And I was able to stay with them in 2nd grade. So I got to loop with them and carry over my action research project as they got older into an additional year, because the fellowship is 2 years. And so while young students have a lot of empathy, what I discovered at that age, they're still very egotistical. You know, if you have any young children in your life, it's like me and mine. But they were able to make connections with characters and text much easier than they were to maybe not so much each other. I don't want to say they couldn't connect with each other, but it was easier to say, I see this character having a hard time. This is what I would do then. They might not pick it up with their friend in the same space. So practicing with characters first, and then with the real children, was the research that I did in my classroom.
Very cool.
You mentioned in passing that teaching yesterday was a difficult day.
Yes. So as we awaited the verdict, I just remember waking up and feeling like, okay, how am I going to get through this day? I felt a heaviness, but also anxious. Like I wanted to stay busy, but it was very difficult to be present. And so I had like friends check in, and then my students and I, in the morning, we take our temperature of our internal weather. So I say, what's your internal weather like today? And they'll say sunny, cloudy. And then I told them, I said, well, today I'm feeling partly cloudy. And then they'll ask why, and I let them know. Some of them were aware of what was going on in the news, and some were not. But then the student shared about his goal. Like he said, well, I feel sunny because, this is my goal of being the smartest man. And that really, really helped lift my spirits a lot. But as the day went on and we moved closer towards the verdict, I, like other people, just felt this like holding in my breath, right? Like what's going to happen? And it felt like gaslighting almost, because like I knew, why did I have to wait for this verdict of something I saw with my own eyes? And so when they not sentenced him, when they said he was guilty, I celebrated and also felt sad. I thought I would feel happier, but I felt sad. And I was talking to my father, who is my best friend, and he said, we can exhale for a while. This is an important moment. It is joy in this moment, but the sadness you feel is more frustration because it's not justice, right? It's so incremental. But George Floyd's family was able to receive a moment that a lot of other Black families did not get, right? Like all the way back to Emmett Till. So this morning, and then later we heard the death of the young girl, Ma'Khia Bryant. And that really just solidified that we will not have justice until the systems are gone, like eradicated, not reformed. And so in the morning, again, it was another day. I said, how can I go on with this day? But when talking to my students about on days like this, because unfortunately, since we've been in a pandemic, there's been more than one day like this. We had Breonna Taylor, the insurrection, George Floyd. So all of these moments come up, and I use a tool from Sarah Ahmed where she has what's in your news. It's a template where it asks the students, like, what's in your news? Because sometimes what I'm coming in, like as a bias, like, well, they must want to talk about this. Must be bothering the students as much as it's bothering me, but I don't really know. So I will put, and I don't know if you all have the file, maybe afterwards I can link the resource, but it's a 4-column like Google spreadsheet, and it asks like, well, what's in your news? Like, what are you concerned about? What are you hearing right now? And then what are your thoughts and feelings and questions? What is your identity that links to this topic? And what could you control? Like, what are your action steps? And so I just let the students input what they are thinking of and what's on their mind, what's in their news right now. And I kind of can see what trends are coming up. And so we utilized that today. There were, I'm going to say a third of the class definitely mentioned George Floyd, but there were other concerns. Some of them were still thinking about Asian hate crimes. A lot of students were still very concerned about the coronavirus. There's also news for happy news. One child, mom had a baby, and so that was in his news. Another one said that he got a really good score on a video game. So we have to remember that in these spaces, we can still celebrate, and there still are moments of joy. And in the news, we can talk about the things that worry us and bother us, but also the things that bring us happiness, and not lose sight of that.
Wow, I just love that, turning over what we talk about from the news to students. But also, I know the tendency would be to want to stay only in the happy moments, that a lot of teachers would be afraid to say, this is bothering a lot of you, and not really know how to talk about what's happening in the world. And I just wonder if you have any advice for people who are wondering about that.
I always look to the students and let them guide you. So there is a follow-up to this lesson. I don't just leave their news out into the world. So we, after, and also teachers should know it's no rush. You don't have to talk about everything on one day. You don't have to talk about everything on 1 week. And if you're not ready, take the time to get ready so that you're not doing more harm than good. So I generally look at what the students have brought up, the different parts, and I'll go back to it. Like I will look for resources. I look to my friends, I look to other teachers that I trust, and I will go back to it. So if you have not built community, you definitely have to go to norms and agreements and say, like, we're going to talk about, like, children need a trigger warning also. We're going to talk about this topic. It's going to be difficult. It may bring up these feelings in you and bring up these feelings for you. And also be aware of who's listening now in the remote situation, especially. You have a lot of parents that are listening, younger siblings. So teachers have to take a temperature of the room. But if their room is a space where they have built community, it will go a lot easier. I definitely think about using entry points. I would not look at the video, but if there is an article or, like I said, another book where you could say, this book is similar to what's happened in real life. How does it make you feel? What thoughts do you have? Artwork is also something that we use in our classroom, because unfortunately history repeats itself. Poetry, there was a beautiful Langston Hughes poem where he talked about moving from the South to the North. And at the end he said, moving away from people who are cruel and afraid. And because the students always asking, like, well, why do people do these crimes? Why do the police harass people? Why do racists hurt Asian people? And then I say, do you think maybe it might be of this language that Langston Hughes has used? Are they cruel and afraid? Does fear have something to do with it? And so trying to look for ways to give students the language or the means to express themselves would probably be the primary job of a teacher, I would say. Like, look for entry points, look for ways that they can express themselves, even if it's not a conversation, if it is artwork, if it is poetry, but there has to be some discussion had so they're not just carrying these feelings on their own.
Mm-hmm. So wise, as I always think of you. I think it's very funny that you said you had not imagined presenting before Heinemann Fellows, because I saw you present with that conference, I don't know, end of January, maybe, the Literacy Coalition. And you presented on your poetry in your classroom and using poetry to think about environmental justice. And I was like, who is this woman? I mean, I think I've seen you present before in a very different way. Talk to me about this work that you're doing. You integrate curriculum, what is it that you're doing?
I do love integration because we have such little time. The school day feels so fast and there's so much to do. So there's a practical side of it. But then again, like I said, there's relevance. And so when you are trying to be, I wouldn't even say trying, because there's a need. You should be a culturally relevant teacher to the students in your classroom, but we often encounter all of these acronyms in teaching. So you have culturally relevant and culturally sustaining, and but the heart of culturally responsive, but the heart of that work is listening to the students and reflecting what's going on in their lives. And so if you're only focused on standards and curriculum, then you're missing like 90% of what's going on in students' lives. And so that's when the integration comes in, and picking topics that students are curious about, picking topics that affect their daily world. And so the topic that you saw me present on environmental justice, I thought that it was a really great topic because it covers students everywhere. Like, all of the students are affected by the environment, whether you live in an inner city, whether you live in rural environment, whether you are in Europe, America, the nature around you and the air you breathe and the water you drink is something that touches your life daily. But you can also see that it doesn't affect everybody equally. And so it's a topic that's readily applied to math, science, social studies, and writing and reading, and one that I enjoy teaching every year.
My mom taught 4th and 5th grade forever, and I think she really felt that those units where she could tie in across the different content areas. When the virus hit, my school district did the same thing. We were looking at COVID in our science classes, math classes, history classes, English classes. So has that approach changed at all in an environment of online teaching? Like, what have you learned this year as an online teacher as far as trying to weave that integration in?
If regular in school teaching is isolating, I think remote teaching is even more isolating, especially when you have some teachers in the school and some teachers at home. But our school and district, we have common planning time. So we all meet as a grade level at the beginning of the day. And when talking to my team and stressing the importance of cohesion, we come up with these driving questions, and the questions are, again, tied into the student's life and in a way that empowers them. So when we were looking at the rainforest, for example, the question was, how does the rainforest affect me and my community? And as a global leader, what can I do to help? And so that was a question I asked before I started my ELA class. And then my colleague who taught science, she asked the same question. My colleague who taught math, she asked the same question. So the kids were able to hear the same language across every subject and also give a meaning to why they're learning everything. So decimals, why am I learning decimals? Well, maybe you need to add or subtract rainfall amounts, or take a critical lens at how much clean air is in our community versus another community. So just giving, again, that relevance to what we're learning that ties into the student's everyday life.
Does every student work towards kind of the same kind of a product, or what's the finish line look like?
But for that, usually yes. And for that particular question, it did turn into the same, not same product, but the culminating task for that unit was the students picked an issue in their environment. So in the Bronx, right by the school, our neighborhood is called Parkchester. And sadly, the Bronx as a whole was built in the middle of highways. And when I'm teaching students about environmental justice issues or any issues that involve racism, I tell them that these inequalities were not happenstance, that somebody created this problem. It was a purposeful problem in the planning of the city. And so if someone created the problem, someone could fix it. And we can help fix it. It's not something that we have no control over. And so the problems that we saw in our community were poor air quality. 1 in 4 students in the Bronx has asthma because, again, it's surrounded by these highways. It's like literally in the middle of these 3 highways. And healthy food, we have the bodega to supermarket ratio was 13 bodegas to 1 supermarket. And so if people, I don't know who's watching, but a bodega is like a corner store. It's like a very tiny grocery store that doesn't have a lot of food options. But we were very purposeful to not say we want to get rid of our bodegas because they're a small business. People come from other countries and they open these stores and they sustain their families. But we want to make sure our bodegas have the same amount of healthy options that one might get from a supermarket. And so what I say, air quality, bodegas, and water. We looked at the water quality in the Bronx, which was not bad. It was really good because, again, you don't want to tell a student your community is just, everything's failing. But how can we continue to have great water quality, and how can we learn from indigenous communities and how they maintained the water before all of us lived here in the Bronx, to take those practices and further make our water quality good. So the students chose one of those 3 projects, and they used science and math and literacy. And I didn't care how they showed their learning, but they put out a public product.
Talk about education for liberation. That's what it looks like, right?
Yes, that's the goal and that's the dream. And to let the kids know that you're in 5th grade, you don't have to wait till you grow up, right? All of the advice that they gave, I told the other adults in their community had a big share. Even when I taught 1st and 2nd grade, I'm very bold. So I'm not really shy, and I will send out blind emails to like whoever, politician, New York Historical Society, Museum of Natural History, like come to my school. And people came and they learned from my little people. And I said, like, you have things to teach. These people teach a museum and work at a museum every day, but they still learn from you. And so just letting the kids know that you don't have to wait to grow up. You can do it now. And the community is in your hands.
Wow. I want my granddaughter in your class.
Oh, I love it. I love being a teacher. My mother was a special ed teacher, so I grew up in the school, and she told me not to be a teacher, but it was nothing else I could be. Can you imagine? What would I be?
Were any of your students able to take on the problem of why the Yankees aren't playing very well right now?
Not yet. Like, give them time.
That's a big problem. Wow, I love what you are doing. I love how student-centered it is and how much choice there is and how relevant it is. You know, Penny and I talk a lot about responsive teaching, and Izzie, man, it sounds really, really responsive to the kids that are in that room.
Yes, yeah. Ariel, did you have Ariel on? Ariel Johnson?
No, but I love her. She's coming on the book club when you want. Yes.
She tweeted, because this is my reading life lately, is reading tweets and memes. But she tweeted that responsive teaching looks different every year. And for peak responsive teaching, you have to look at the students that you're sharing space with. And so it does change every year. Even though I taught 1st grade for 10 years, it was different every year. Again, I was in New Jersey, in my hometown, and I went to the Bronx, and I went to Brooklyn, I went back to the Bronx. And so, but even if I stayed in one space, 10 years ago is not the same as right now. So you have to listen, and you have to talk to kids and trust them. I had a teacher ask me once, well, when you're having these conversations with students, what if they say the wrong thing? Mm-hmm. And so one, you have to disrupt that binary thinking that there's a right answer and a wrong answer. But even if they say something that you know might be harmful, give them a chance to fix it. They're having a human experience. Give the other students a chance to respond. I told her, I was like, just stay silent for a minute and see if other kids speak up. They usually do. So we have to trust our students, and we have to trust ourselves that we can be brave enough to handle these conversations. They're not going to go, and they might, they may, and you'll learn from it. But for the most part, they will go the way you want them to. Which is leading towards deeper learning, leading towards relationship building, leading towards understanding. Like, that's what you're going towards.
It is so wise. And I could hear in that answer, like, isn't that the teacher's best opportunity? Just stay quiet for a minute.
Yeah.
Right? Do we always have to jump in and know? I love that. Just stay quiet. So many things that will teach us.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of each year having its own, each year is a living thing, I think is really, really rich too. Often we end our chats with a little bit of off-the-cuff lightning round questions. So if you're up for that,
okay.
Penny,
I have one for you.
you
You
ready?
should know I am a Mets fan and not a Yankees fan, though.
That's the distinction.
Well, should I say this publicly? Then I already had high regard for you, but it just went up another notch. So it's all good.
So my question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how good of a driver are you?
Oh no. I'm gonna say 7. I'm gonna say better than half, but not amazing.
How about you, Kelly? Scale of 1 to 10.
How good I am or how good I think I am?
No. I know. Or
I'm an 8.
People say you are.
I'm an 8. I'm an 8.
Yeah, you're an 8.
Izzie, in 1 minute or less, tell us about a teacher who made a difference in your life.
My mommy, my mother was my first teacher. Again, she was a special ed teacher. As a child of a teacher, she drove me crazy because all of my things would disappear and end up in her classroom, including my pet bird. I'll never let her forget that. But she gave me an opportunity to come in her class and learn and teach. I took small groups in college, like, for fun. So there's no way I would be the teacher that I am without my mommy.
That's beautiful. Is she still teaching?
No, my mother retired, and both my parents are retired, and so don't bother them, they say.
They've put in their time.
What am I currently reading? For pleasure, this is funny for pleasure book, but I'm reading Bell Hooks, All About Love, which is a nonfiction book. And it's like questioning everything I know about love. And it's funny, I'm laughing because I'm saying I'm reading it for pleasure, because every note that I make, I go, how does this apply to me? How does this apply to the students in my class? How does this apply to my life? How can I bring more love into my classroom?
Boy, that sums up you really well.
Yeah. I want to say that's a blessing and all at the same time, right? You know that you really are a professional, motivated teachers when you start seeing the world through the lens of your class.
Oh yeah, New York Times cooking section. No one believes me, but I'm like, the New York Times cooking section gives me so much ideas about teaching, and it's like, well, how? But they have such beautiful writers, and the way their writers talk about mixing ingredients, I'm like, it's the same way you could do a curriculum.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. You know what a gift to have you with us. Thank you so much for your honesty, your courage, your joy. It's really been a treat.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
So nice to meet you. You've given me hope.
And we're going to put links on the Padlet to different things you talked about today, so that will help people out. Thank you so much, Izzie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Izzie.
Are we waving at Zoom calls? Yeah. Are we waving at the end of Zoom calls still?
Yeah, let's say that. Let's do that. All right, everybody. See you all tomorrow.